Hello, good evening. It's Monday again. Welcome to our Monday night Facebook Live. I hope you all had a lovely weekend. The weather was absolutely fabulous, wasn't it? Although I think it's coming to an end now. We had an enormous thunderstorm on Saturday night. Really, really fantastic. It went on for over an hour with just almost constant thunder and lightning for that whole time. Really quite dramatic. I always enjoy a good thunderstorm. A lot of rain too, but it's been better today. And of course today is Monday the 23rd of April, which is St. George's Day today. So happy St. George's Day, everybody. For any of you who are not, don't know or not based in the UK, today is the National Day of England. As St. George is our patron saint. Hi Louise! First one here today, welcome. So yes, today's St. George's Day. I have to say, I've been living in the UK for 20 years now, originally from Ireland, so a bit further south of you, Louise. And I find it absolutely bizarre that the National Day of England is not really celebrated. It's not a bank holiday, just not a fuss is made at all, which in some senses is really quite English if you think about it. But wouldn't it have been lovely if it was a bank holiday though? So maybe one day, who knows. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to join in. As you join, just leave me a comment and say hello so I know you're here. I'm just going to check my setup, so bear with me a second. Right, where are we at? Make sure I can see everything. Right. Here we go. Here we are. Right. So, last week we had a really busy Facebook Live because I had a lot to tell you about our retiring list and our colour revamp and clearance rack and all sorts of good stuff. So that's all still going on. So as I say, retiring list, make sure to check it out on my website, www.stampingjack.com. Where I've posted all the details of what's currently retiring. They're while stocks last, so if there's anything in either the spring or in any of the catalogues that you particularly like or want to get your hands on, then don't hang about because this stuff it's still there, but it won't be there for very much longer. In particular, if any of the colours that are retiring are your favourites, then make sure to stock up on your card stock and on your ink refill so you can keep on going. So yes, last week I did the projects we're really using stuff that primarily that was retiring. But this week I'm going to be showing you the projects that we made at last week's class. And we focused last week on the Beautiful Day stamp set, which I'm very pleased to say is carrying over into the new catalogue, because this was a new one in our Spring Summer catalogue and it's absolutely fabulous. And I love the really big bold images. So we've got 4 cards tonight for you. Using this stamp set in various different ways. So let's see what we got. Yeah, so let's get going, shall we? So the first card I've got is using our Brusho inks. Now I know I've shown you our Brusho inks before. These highly pigmented powders which are water activated. And generally speaking, the results from Brusho are really, really intense. And that's great, but sometimes you don't really want that intensity. So I did a few these cards, which just shows you how to get a much softer look. And I'm really happy with how these turned out. This was my sample for the class, and this was the one that we actually made at the class using the different colours. So I'm going to make a third one for you tonight. So we start with a white card base, which I'm just going to fold in half and score. Okay, as usual, all the dimensions and supplies will be on my blog in the next couple of days. And then I've got a piece of our basic grey, which is a layer. So we're just going to put those to one side. Hi Lynn, how are you? Did you have a good weekend? Right, put those to one side. And now we're going to bring in our watercolour paper. And because we're doing something a bit messy, I'm just going to put some scrap paper behind here, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to heat emboss our butterfly. So Lynn, you're here just in time. I know how much you like a bit of heat embossing. So let me just plug in my heat tool. and we'll get going. So for this I need my Versamark ink, my embossing buddy, and my silver embossing powder. Hi Kat, actually do you know what, you didn't, because we didn't do an entire class with Brusho, so don't worry, you didn't miss out. That was the plan, but it didn't quite work out that way. Right, so let's get our butterfly. You can see just how big he is. Welcome, by the way, Kat. It's good to see you. All right, so first things first, embossing buddy all over. There we go. Okay, and then we're just going to ink up our butterfly with our Versamark. Give it a good inking. Okay, and then we're just going to stamp the butterfly at an angle. I know what you mean, Kat. It's not selfish at all. I promise we'll do a Brusho class or some Brusho fun at a class soon. There we go. Okay, so that's that. And I'm going to heat emboss this in silver. Make sure I've got my silver here. Yeah. And I'm just going to sprinkle that all over. There we go. That's it. And then we're just going to empty this back into that pot. Because the last thing we want is our embossing powder everywhere. There we go. Right. So we're going to heat this up, but because this is on watercolour paper, and the cardstock is a bit thicker, so it might take a little bit longer. So bear with me a minute while we do this. There we go. Let's see if we can make it show on camera and see the magic. There we go. There we are. Can you see that? Yay! Every time. No matter how often I heat emboss, that moment when it turns from powder into shimmery magic, I just love it. Makes me smile every time. Who else is the same? Okay. There we go, almost done. Look at that. Beautiful. Now I'm just going to put some heat on the back, just because I don't want my card to warp. It will warp with this, but I just don't want it to warp too much. There we go. Yes, yes, of course you love it. We all love it. What's not to love, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's see, what colours shall we use? So this is red and yellow. And this is green and yellow. So you guys, do you have a preference? Or would you like to see orange? What do you think? Let me see. I'll wait a few seconds while I let this dry and let me know what you think. There we go. Okay, cool. Any votes? I know there's a bit of a delay, so I'm just going to put this stuff away while we wait. I'm going to need my Stampin' spritzer for, my spritzer for this bit. And I'm also going to need an aqua painter. Okay. While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to stamp on our vellum. Blues and greens, Kat. I knew you'd like that. Okay. So we've got a strip of vellum here, and I'm going to use our Stays On ink. Blues. Oh, hi, Sharon. Welcome. I'm going to use our Stays On ink to stamp on our vellum. And the reason I do that is because it just vellum. Stuff tends to slide on it, and Stays On just doesn't do that. So I've made it extra long. I'm just going to stamp it round about the middle, and you'll see why later. Okay, so Stays On was retired last year from our catalogue, but it's coming back in June, which I'm really happy about because I love Stays On. It's a fabulous permanent ink, and it's great for stamping on acetate and slippery surfaces. Right, so I think we have a vote for blues. So we're going to take the blue and the yellow. Okay, let's just move everything out of the way. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some blue. Now, you don't need a lot of this, and I urge you to just be sparing with it, because if your result is not as dark as you'd like, you could always add more in. Lou, you want orange? Okay, let's put some orange in as well, okay? I aim to please. So I'm just, you can see, I'm just putting a little bit in. And in fact, Lynn, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to swap out the yellow for the orange. And let's see what happens, shall we? Okay. And I'm not being especially precise about where this is going on, because I don't want it inside the butterfly. Okay. Let's have a look, and then maybe a little bit more blue. Put some there. A little bit there. Okay. So once I'm happy with the amount of powder I've got down, I'm going to take my spritzer, make sure the nozzle is pointing in the right direction, and I'm just going to hold it probably about 8 inches or so away, okay? And I'm just going to spray it almost straight down over the cardstock, and watch this magic once the water hits the ink. Look at that. Fabulous. And just keep spraying. Okay, now I want a little bit more in here, so I'm just going to add some more orange and a little bit more blue. Here we go, and then I can add a little bit more water to it just to make it work. I'm just going to get some kitchen towel. Now you can see that that's really quite intense, okay? And that's fine if intense is the look you're going for, but I really wanted quite a much more subtle effect, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my kitchen towel and just gently dab it while it's still wet. And what that's going to do is that's just going to lift some of that pigment off, okay? Not pressing too hard, just because I want to take a bit of the water off as well, okay? Just dabbing it slightly, and there we go. Okay, look at that. Now, I think I want a bit more orange in this, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some more. And this is what I was saying to you about making sure that you're sparing, because you can always add more as you go. And I'm just going to spray again. Okay, and actually I want a bit of orange out this way. Spray there. And we'll add a bit more blue too. Whoa, that was a lot of blue. Did you see that? Okay, some serious dabbing will be needed there. So let's do that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to try that orange again, because the blue kind of obliterated it that time. There we go, that's more like it. And then we just pop our kitchen towel over the top, and there we go. Beautiful, beautiful subtle effect. Bit more there than I want, so I'm going to wet it here again. So you've actually got a fair amount of control on this in terms of managing how dark your colour is, and if you find it's a bit dark in spots, then you can just reactivate it with the water and get some more going. I'm going to add a bit more orange up this end. There we go. There we are. Okay, so let's clean some of that away while we let it dry for a bit. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring my heat tool in, and I'm just going to dry this up a little so it doesn't delay things any further, okay? And where I've got a bit more water than I want, I can just dab it up with my kitchen towel like so. Okay, so this is getting pretty dry. Okay. There we are. You can see my card is beginning to curl as I dry it. You see that the edges are curling up. So now what I want to do is just flip it over and add heat to the back, and that should eliminate some of that curl and start to flatten the card out. Don't know if you can see that. There we go. Okay. Right. So there we have our lovely panel. Okay. Now let's bring back in our vellum. Okay. And vellum is always it's one of those things that's always tricky to adhere, right? To get it on there without the glue showing through. So one of the things I like to do most is actually to just wrap my vellum around the back of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to add a little bit of snail, a bit like when I attach ribbon, yeah? And that's why I've cut it long. So I'm just going to add some snail on the side. I'm just going to place my sentiment where I want it. And you can see because I've cut it long, I've got a bit of room to place it exactly where I want. Okay, so I want it there. So I'm just going to fold it over and press it down. What you need to be careful of is that when you fold it, it's straight, okay? Otherwise your strip will be crooked. Okay, and then we just do the same on the other side. Okay, again, making sure, I'm bending my card back again a little bit to make sure my vellum does actually go. All right, so there we have our vellum. And that's usually the way I attach vellum to stuff, because you can't see the glue then. Right, next step is to adhere this to our grey panel, okay? And normally, as you know, I like to use my liquid glue. But when I've got a panel like this that I've worked quite a lot with heat and water and embossing and all sorts of stuff, and it's quite warped like this, I like to use double-sided tape, and quite a lot of it. Lynn, it is easy. It is easy. That's the beauty of it. The only thing about Brusho is that it's unpredictable. But that's part of the fun of it. Okay, so you can see I'm adding quite a lot of tape to the back of this. Okay, press that down. And then we're just going to pull these bits off. Let's bring them right in. Excuse me. Alrighty, so then we just lay our piece of card. Now the thing about double-sided tape, and the reason why I don't use it all that often, is that you don't have the same kind of wiggle room that you do with wet glue. So just be careful how you put it down, then flip it over and just give it a good rub on the back. That way you won't disturb anything on your card front or smear it if it's still slightly wet. Okay, so be quite firm with it, get it stuck down nice, and there you go. So you can see that the panel is much straighter and lies a lot flatter now. Okay, and then we bring back in our card base and back to our regular glue now. We don't need double-sided tape, so again just some glue on the back. A little bit more than normal, again, because it will have a tendency to curl and you don't really want it to do that. So this will just help it lay flat, nice and flat. And there we go. And now you can see the wiggle room in action. Okay, and again, I'm just going to turn it over. Hi, Fran. Welcome. Right. And there we have it. So, thanks, Fran. So there's our red and yellow, really, really soft, especially with the white embossing. It's a really soft effect. And then we have blue and green. No, blue and yellow, which makes green. Okay. And then we have this one, which is blue and orange. So you still get a green effect, but with a little splash of orange in there for you, Lynn. Okay. So there we go. That's card number 1 using Brushos. There we go. Easy peasy. Now, the second card that we're going to make is, which one are we going to do next? Is using our blends, okay? So this is our template, okay? And I've changed it up slightly, okay? So what we've got is our Whisper White card base. Okay. And I've got get my bits out. I've got a black layer because I thought the black is actually going to set this off a lot better. Okay, So what we're going to do is, instead of the butterfly, we're now going to switch out and we're going to stamp our large flower. Okay, so I've got a little scrap here, and when we're using our blends, okay, we want to use our Memento ink. Okay, so I'm just going to stamp that down. Okay, make sure we've got some in the middle there. There we go, make sure our stamp is covered, and we're just going to stamp that down. This is just a scrap that I've got because I'm going to cut this flower out. Okay, there we go. And while I've got my ink out, I'm going to take my sentiment, which is Happy Birthday, and I'm going to stamp that because I like to let my Memento ink dry ever so slightly before I start to blend. Okay, I'm just going to stamp that there. Okay, so we'll put that, and then we've got the little small flower image on this one, and we're just going to add 2 little ones like that, all in the Memento black. Okay, so they can go to one side for the moment, and then we can bring back in our flower. All right, now I'm going to show you a little bit, and then I'm going to skip forward because you don't really want to see me colouring the entire flower. So I'm just going to do one part, and then you can extrapolate from there. Okay, so for this one, excuse the noise while I rummage around in my, there we go, my box. So I'm going to use 2 sets of blends. So I'm going to use the yellow, which is the Daffodil Delight, and the Pumpkin Pie Light and Dark. Okay, so if I show you what I want to do, let's take this here. Okay, so I just want to add some lights. This is my light Daffodil Delight. All right, in there. And then I want to add some dark Daffodil Delight, like so. And then come back to my light and just blend those 2 together. Okay, so we've got a little bit of gradation going on there. And then I want to come in with my Pumpkin Pie because I want to make it really quite dark. Okay, and I don't know if you can see, but as I'm dotting that on there, the ink is starting to expand all by itself. And I'm going to take my light Pumpkin Pie and just use that to blend my dark so we don't have a line. Okay, and then I'm going to come back in with my Daffodil Delight just to lighten that up again. Okay, so we've got a bit more of a blend. Okay, so can you see how that's worked? We've got a really nice, and the thing about this ink is that it kind of keeps working, so try not to work it too much and then maybe come back to it later, because it keeps kind of spreading and blending and what have you. All right, so I have one that I prepared earlier, and that's this one. Okay, so that's using all of those colours to just create this variegated flower. So, you know, you could just colour it in one and that'd be absolutely fine. But this one I actually took a bit of time on, but I figured you probably wouldn't want to sit and watch me colour all of this. Thank you, Fran. It's not quite like watching paint dry, but fairly similar. So I decided I didn't want to inflict it on you guys. There we go. Aren't I good to you? All right. And the thing is with this is that if you're going to do like something like this with quite a lot of blending, you really need to use the thick cardstock. The thin regular cardstock will take a small amount of colouring, but if you really want to get into the blending like this, the thin cardstock just won't take it. So you need your thick. Okay. There we go. Almost there. But you know, if you like colouring, then the thing to do is to just stamp a load of these flowers onto a sheet of thick cardstock and just colour them as you go. Alright, now you can see I've started it on one petal, but I'm going to do it on the lot. I'm going to add some of my favourite, Wink of Stella. Now that's white, I don't want that. Clear. There we go. So we're just going to add, just to give it a little bit of extra shimmer. There we go. Okay, pop that to one side for 1 second. Right, make a bit of space. Again, I just want to give that Wink of Stella just a moment to dry up. So bring back in our bits. All right, so we'll take our flower, and now I'm going to just work it. Isn't it nice on the back side as well? Very pretty. Okay, so I'm just going to work it a little bit carefully so I don't tear it, but I'm just breaking down the fibres a little bit just so it's not a flat flower sitting on the card. Okay, I want a little bit of dimension on it. Okay, and then I'm going to take one of my dimensionals. In fact, I'm going to take two. Okay, and I'm going to pop those on the back like so. I'm going to just add that down in the corner, oops, like so. Okay, and now I want my rhinestones, and I'm going to bring back in my pumpkin pie, and this is one of my favourite, actually one of my favourite uses for my blends, is colouring my rhinestones. So I'm just going to colour a few of these. Okay, it's as simple as that. That's all you need to do. Let's pop these up. Oops. So it means that really you don't need to buy lots of different coloured rhinestones. You can just use your blends to create, create them in exactly the colour that you want. You can use Sharpie markers for the same. There we go. And I'm actually going to use, so these are connected, so I'm just going to snip these apart. And because the markers are alcohol, they do dry pretty quickly, so you're unlikely to get big smudges on you when you're working with the rhinestones. You can colour our pearls as well. You can colour ribbon, which I think I've shown you on a previous video. You can colour anything with them really. There we go. Okay. And then, easy, just glue. So we're going to put some glue on the back. There we go. Stick that down to the piece of black. You see how the black really just makes it pop. The grey worked really well with the red, but I think the black works better with this colour. And then again, and there we go. Look at that. Make sure that's straight. So there we have it. So this is a much simpler one. I've just used the cherry cobbler. And what I've done, I'll show you in another, I've gone back in with my colour lifter to get these, I don't know if you can see them, can you see like these little lines, just to add a little bit of extra texture. But you can see this is quite flat and fairly straightforward, whereas this is just a bit more advanced. So you can still get really good results without really mad colouring skills. And this is not mad colouring skills either, it's just taking a little bit of time over it. So that's card number 2. Now let's see what we're going to do next. Next we're going to move back to the butterfly. Okay, so for this one, this is the sample that we had in the class. Okay, but one of the ladies in the class, Jude, decided to colour hers all in one colour, just shading dark out to light, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful. So that's what I'm going to do tonight in mine. Okay, so you see the inspiration in my classes, it doesn't just go one way. I get inspired by the ladies here just as much as I try and provide inspiration for them. So, right, so we're going to ink this up in our memento. Good inking. Okay, we're just going to stamp that here. Again, give it a good press, make sure you get good transfer of ink. And then I'm going to stamp the always thinking of you sentiment along the bottom while I've got my ink out. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do is what colour shall I use? I think I'm going to do Calypso Coral, because that's not a colour I use all that often, but I think it'll go really nicely with the navy. So let's make sure I've got them. So that's the dark Calypso Coral and the light Calypso Coral, and I've got my colour lifter as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna sit down for this one, so I won't be able to see your comments for a bit. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm just going to start by just laying the colour all over, and I'm just going to do it one wing at a time so that I've still got blending. If I coloured the whole thing, by the time I got back to the first wing, it probably wouldn't blend as nicely. Okay, and then I'm just going to add some dark in here, and then come back and blend that out. You can see Calypso Coral is quite a light colour, but I can actually add quite a lot down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my colour lifter and I'm going to take the nib end, and I'm just going to add some like little, you won't be able to see that yet, okay, but that will come together in a moment. Alright, so we'll move on to the next one. So again, laying our colour down. Now again, you could take a lot more time and care over this one to get just the effect that you wanted, but I just want to illustrate it to you more than anything else. Okay, so I want it quite dark in the center, and then we're going to take the light again and just blend that out. Bring that down and around. Now I've gone a little bit over there, can you see that? I want to lift that up, so I'm going to take my colour lifter, I'm just going to go over it. And it rubs it out. So if you go outside the lines a little bit, it's okay. It don't matter. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit on there. Go back with this one. There we are. Okay, and then again, try not to take too long on this one. But you get the idea. And like I say, you know, you can put the dark down first and then go the light over it. And a lot of people like to do that. But I do like to have the layer of light down first. I just find to do it as a 3-step rather than a 2-step. I just get a better blend. Because the darker ink is sitting on top of a ink already rather than going straight into the card. So it blends a lot better. As you can see, we had a really hard line there and it's just blending out beautifully. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna add a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. Bored yet, ladies? I like colouring, but I'm not sure that watching somebody colour is the most interesting thing. So let me know if you're still with me. There we go. Now you know why I did the flower in advance. Because I'd have been here all night. You guys probably wouldn't be, I would. There we go. Okay, and I can go in and add a little bit more if I want. I'm just going to add some more bits. Oops. There we go. And then we'll go back with our colour lifter. Just adding these little stripes just gives it a little bit more texture. It's very subtle and it takes a couple of minutes to kind of really show up, but I think it looks great. Add a bit more there. So there we go. Look at that. Oh, thanks, Franz. Glad to know you're still with me. So there we go. And that's just using 2 colours, okay? And of course, because it's butterfly, I'm going to add some sparkle to it. So we've got our Wink of Stella. I'm just going to gently add this over the top. We've got to be careful when adding Wink of Stella over the top of anything because it will reactivate the ink. And you don't want it. I mean, my blending is not that precise, so it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. But if you had different colours in here, you probably wouldn't want, you probably just have to be careful not to spread the colours too much. There we go. Okay. There we are. Alrighty. Oh, and look, you can see it's gone through onto my surface, but that's okay. Don't worry about it in the slightest. Right, and then on the inside, okay, I'm just going to take my butterfly, ink it up. I'm going to bring in my scrap paper from earlier. And I'm just going to stamp it off. And then I'm just going to stamp my butterfly. Use my paper. I'm just going to stamp him on the edge here. Just a little bit. Oh, thanks, Lynn. They're just so easy to come together. That's why I love this stamp set, because the image is just so huge that really this, you don't need to do a whole lot. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of colour in here. Not a lot, because I just want a hint. Okay, I'm going to spread it with my colour lifter. Now, that didn't work. That was a little bit of an experiment on my part. So let's try that again. Just as you said it, Lynn. I tried a bit too hard. Right, so let's do it this way so we can cover up. There we go. That should do the trick. Okay, you could sponge that if you wanted. Right, so let's bring back in our base, which is our Night of Navy. Okay. And then we're just going to put this one on the inside. Okay. And then we've got this one on the outside. Now I see that I've managed to smear that a little bit. So let me take my eraser and see if I can sort this out. This eraser is magic. Can't solve everything, but it has rescued quite a few cards. Here we go. Just get this big stubborn bit of good rub. There we go, look at that. You'd never know it was there. But I'm going to bring back in these rhinestones that I coloured earlier, and I'm just going to add a couple. So I'm going to add one here, and I'm going to add one down here. Oop. Come on, there we go. Alright, and then I'm going to colour the bigger one. I'm going to colour two actually. And then just pop those in the centre of the body. Actually, one's enough, I think. There we go. Alrighty. Okay. And then, now look at that on the back side of it. Isn't that beautiful? You could almost use the back of it just as a much more watercolory, impressionistic kind of looking card, isn't it? There we go. And then just glue that to the front. And there we have it. Such an easy card. And like I say, you know, I've used my blends to colour this, but you could watercolour this, you could sponge it. I've done a card where I've stamped it on patterned paper and cut it out. Carly, these are our Stampin blends. They're our alcohol based markers that come in a range of colours. Mainly they come in pairs with a dark and a light. Okay, so here's our original with lots of different colours. So this has got navy, pool party and raspberry. And then this one here is just taking the Calypso coral. So while I tidy away, let me have your votes and see if you prefer the coloured or the orange one. Let's make a bit of space for our final card. Let's put that away. Calypso coral. Carly, they come, they're £4.50 each, I think. I'll put a link in the description of the video below, so you can go to my online store and get them. Blended orange. There's a range of them, so the whole set together I think comes to £108 or something, but you can buy them individually or in pairs depending on the colours that you like. I'll show you quickly while the votes are coming in. So we've got, you know, they come in our Stampin' Up colours. We've got Calypso Coral, we've got orange, we've got Daffodil Delight, we've got pink, we've got Cherry Cobbler, Rich Raspberry, Bermuda Bay, Soft Sky, Night of Navy, and Grey, and of course Old Olive. And then we've got our colour lifter and then some skin tones and things like that. Okay? There we go. If you need any more information, just I'll put a link in the comments so you can follow it. Right, what have we got? Oh, I think the orange is the winner for today. I think I agree with you, ladies. I think I agree. Right, now for our final card. This is the one that we made at the class. And what we did here was we did a little bit of blending. We used our blends again. Not a lot. Absolutely, Carly, if you've got any questions, just let me know. And you can see we didn't spend a whole lot of time on these. But I thought, do you know what? Tonight, I've used the blends already on 2 cards. So what I want to do with this is do it a little bit differently. And I'm actually going to watercolour this one, because that's what I was saying to you earlier. So there's various different ways that you can do this. So we've got our watercolour paper. I'm going to bring in our scrap, okay? And all I'm going to do is take our flower, okay? And I'm just going to stamp this all around. Okay, and again, because it's watercolor paper, make sure to give it a really good press, because the surface is not as smooth as our regular cardstock, so you want to make sure that the ink gets as far in. Oh, I've made a mistake. I inked with my Memento, and that's no good for watercolouring. So excuse me 1 second. Let me get another piece of watercolour card. It's here somewhere. Okay, just 1 second. Let me cut a piece. See, that's me guessing. That's what happens when you don't concentrate. Alright, come on, watercolour card. Yes. Here you go. Sorry about this, ladies. I'll be right back. Okay, so that I'll use for another project. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to use my Stays On ink. Okay, because the Stays On is alcohol based, it means that when I apply water, it won't blend or it won't run with the inks that I'm using. Okay, so let's try this one again, shall we? There we go. Again, make sure you get a really good inking and press down hard. And make sure that you've got some scrap paper underneath, because we're stamping off, as you can see. And especially with Stays On, you do not want this on your work surface because it will stick. And it will not go anywhere. Okay, so let's pop that one there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit more down here, like that. Okay, and then where we've got little gaps, I'm just going to take the little flower and just fill some of these in. Okay, there we go. In there. All right. And now I'm just going to get some inks. And the ink I'm going to use is one of our colours that's retiring. And I am really, really, really sad to see this go. And that's Island Indigo. But while I'm waiting for that, I want to just give it a second. It Stays On dries really quickly, but I just want to give it a second just to be sure. So I'm just going to stamp my sentiment while I wait. Okay. I'm going to stick with the Always Thinking of You. Whoop. There we go. I rocked my stamp there, that's what happened that time, and because it's caught ink at the edge there, see that? So never rock your stamp when you're stamping. Straight up and down is or straight down and up, I should say, is what I always say. Right, so let's bring back our piece of card. We'll get our ink pad, and the usual, just press the lid together, and it gives us a nice well of ink in the center. Okay, and we'll get an aqua painter that's got some water in it, because that will work a lot better for watercolouring, wouldn't you say? Right, let's see what we've got. There we go. Alrighty, so just going to squeeze a bit of water, and I want quite a light effect here. And again, because it's watercolour, I don't really want it to be too precise. I'm not too concerned. So I want it dark in the middle and then just blend it out. As you see, I'm just keeping it quite loose. Okay. Now again, you could colour this in all different colours if you wanted. But to keep it simple and easy, I'm just going to stick to one. like so. Okay. All right, and then I can come back and add more colour if I want. Okay, so I'm just going to, you can see I'm not being careful at all. That's one of the things I like about doing this kind of watercolouring, is that, you know, you don't really need to be. You just want to get the colour on there and just the impression of the colour. There we go. And then a little bit here. You can see I'm not even using a great deal of water on here. Just painting it on. Okay. And then what I can do is I can just go back in and just add. And what I do is I just use the lines of the flower themselves just to add a bit of shading. Like so. Okay. So you want shading under the leaves. I want a bit more water, hang on. Can you see that? There we go. So if I want it to blend a little bit, I just add a bit more water and that will spread the colour a bit more for me. See that? Okay. And again, I want the centres quite dark. There we go. Alright. So again, if you really wanted to, you could spend a long time watercolouring these flowers and getting them exactly as you wanted. But you know me. I'm not one for spending hours on a card. So I really, and it was the same when we did it with the blends. You just want to give it a really, just an impression of it. It's not a masterpiece, it's just... There we go. Okay, blend these out a bit more colour in here. There we go. Okay, and then to clean off your pen, all you do is just rub it around like that. So now I'm just going to get some green. We want to use my Pear Pizzazz, exactly the same. Okay, I'm just going to make sure I don't have any blue on my pen, and I don't. Okay, so again, just pick the ink up. I've only got 2 leaves on here, so not a lot to do really. There we go. Okay, so that's that. And that'll dry pretty quickly because I haven't put a lot of water on there. So I'm just going to leave it for 1 second. Okay. And I'm just going to, while I do that, I'm just going to stamp the inside. Okay, so I'm going to take the flower and I'm going to ink it up in the Island Indigo. Okay, then I'm going to stamp it off and then just stamp it here in the center. Okay, this is a little bit of interest on the inside. Alrighty, so we've got our card base, which is in basic grey. And my bone folder, which has gone missing. So, there it is. There we go. So this we're just going to pop on the inside using our glue. Okay. Like so. Alright, and then coming back to our sentiment, so we should have a strip of black. Here it is. Okay, and we're just going to stick our white strip to our black strip. And you can see, there we are. Oops. Alright, and I want dimensionals on the back of there, so let's trim those. Alrighty, so now we come back to our base, and you can see that it's curled a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to curl it back, and I'm going to put the heat tool on it for a second. Ordinarily I'd let it dry, but you don't really need to wait for that. So, and you can see that that's helping to flatten it out a little. So a bit like the card we did earlier, because I've worked this quite a lot, I'm going to use my double-sided tape on here, just to help it lay flat on the card. There we go. Whoops. There. Okay, so we've got our black layer. Just pop that down. Okay, and then just give it a good rub on the back to make sure that it's sticking nicely and it'll lay flat. So there we go. Can you see? That's much flatter now. Alright, so now we bring in our sentiment panel. Alrighty, and then we're going to pop that. Where do I want? I'm going to put that across the middle, like so. Okay, and then we're just going to get our glue. Across the back. Our card base, make sure it's the right way around, and then onto the front. And there we have it. I love Ireland Indigo. I can't tell you how sad I am that it's going away. I mean, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful colour. It's gorgeous, and it's really, really versatile. Right, so there we have it. That's our last card. So let's bring back in our cards for this evening, because it's time for the all-important vote. So what have we got? So we've got the Brusho card. I know, Fran, it's just, what can I say? What can I say? We've got our blended butterfly, we've got our blended flower, and we've got our watercoloured flower. So while I tidy up, let me have your votes on which one is your favourite. This is my favourite part of the evening, is hearing what you guys think, and seeing which one wins for tonight. I think it's going to be a tough one this evening. I certainly can't pick a favourite. I think they're all really turned out really, really nice. So, like I said, I will have a blog post for these cards showing all the dimensions and all the supplies on my blog in the next couple of days, later on this week. If you like any of these products, as I say, this stamp set, the Beautiful Day stamp set, is just, it's amazing. I can't recommend enough that you go ahead and get this. You can see the kind of cards that you can produce with it really, really easily, and it's an inexpensive set. Kat loves the Brusho. Lynn loves the blended flower and the blended butterfly. Fran can't pick. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to think about that one. I think when I started, the Brushos were my favourite. But actually, the ones that I've made, this one is kind of, I really like this one. It's kind of cool. So, thank you again for joining me. Please, if you could share this video, I'd really appreciate it, as it just helps me to grow my little business here, which is great. It's been really lovely having you with me again, and I'll see you all again next Monday. Kat, I'll see you on Wednesday. Can't wait. The blue looks like stained glass. This one, or this one? Bran. I think you probably mean this one, do you? Yeah. So, as I say, thanks again, ladies, and see you again next week. Bye! Bye.